New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is excited to present Divine Science Everywhere, Fridays at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and 4 p.m. Eastern. Come explore a modern experience of divine science with Reverend Joy Fletcher, Reverend Jeff Radcliff, and Bishop Durrell Watkins. Join us as we open our eyes to divine science everywhere we look. Fridays on New Thought Media Network.
Welcome to our 25th broadcast of Divine Science Everywhere on New Thought Media Network. I'm Reverend Joy Fletcher, and I wanted to share with you that Divine Science Everywhere features divine science ministers and other New Thought guests as we discuss the principle and practice of divine science. One of the ways, or some of the ways I express ministry is as a hospice bereavement coordinator, and sometimes I get pressed into service as a chaplain. And I am a lifetime member of the International New Thought Alliance and an honorary member of affiliated New Thought Network and Divine Science Federation International, and I'm an end-of-life practitioner. So I'd like to introduce to you Reverend Jeff Radcliff.
Y'all know my bona fides by now. I'm not going to go over them again, but you can find me on Facebook, Giatti Ministries. Giati stands for God is all there is. I mean, divine science. God is all there is. That's what we teach. It's what we practice. So you'll find me there. Usually on Friday evenings, you'll also find me back on New Thought Media Network with Reverend Michael Mangus and the Friday Fireside Chat. But we're taking a hiatus for the next 2 weeks. So don't look for us tonight or next week, but the week after that. So.
And I'm Durrell Watkins. I am the Senior Minister of the Sunshine Cathedral, the President of the Divine Science Federation, and I am an Auxiliary Bishop with the Global Justice Institute. I have another show on another network. In addition to this one, I am a monthly contributor to Outclick magazine, and I've written several books, a lot of them independently published. One is I have a chapter in an academic tome, the Queer Bible Commentary, 2nd edition, SCM Press, and something coming out from the University of Delaware Press called Legendary. And I have a chapter in there about the spirituality of drag. And so I love writing. I do quite a bit of it, but I also love broadcasting. I love parish ministry, and I love activism. And I'm very blessed to be able to do all of that. Now, before we get into some big teaching and lively discussion, we always start out with a time of centering. Sometimes we're just so busy. In fact, we were just talking earlier today, the three of us, how busy we feel and how busy we are, and how sometimes we need some sort of a calendar just to keep up with our calendar. And so these moments of centering, these moments of quiet, whether it's 15 minutes in the morning or 15 minutes at night or 30 minutes, or when we gather together on Fridays, when we can take some moments to breathe, to focus, to relax, it is life-saving. And so we do it every Friday. Reverend Joy leads us, as she is going to do right now.
So as we prepare ourselves by focusing on the present moment. Yes, we all have to-do lists and other things that are pressing for our attention. Right now, we're going to center on the essence of divine science and the essence of who and what we are. And through that, as we reconnect consciously with this source, the other things seem to flow more easily. So, in divine science and healing, Melinda Kramer reminds us that immortality is not something we earn, it's the eternal nature of our being, because God is spirit and God is life, and we, made in the image and likeness of God, is life expressing. Immortality isn't a far off condition, but the living truth of this very moment. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought of love is God's life appearing through us, eternal, changeless, whole. To realize our oneness is to awaken to our immortality now. Some suggest that some people have difficulty living in the present because they're afraid of what death might be like. So they keep themselves preoccupied so they don't consider that. But when we know that we are always in that source, in the omnipresence of God, there is a peace that is available to us. And when we speak of healing, of that sense of separation, we also are not speaking of just the body alone, but instead the revelation of wholeness. The remembering that we know, that we know, that we know that there cannot be any separation between God, the divine, and us and creation. The only sense of separation is but a veil that we seem to block ourselves from this awareness at times. But instead, we can right now regroup, refocus, and know that we live and move and have our being in this source, in this perfect life. So energy, life, and spirit do not die. They change form. They change form. And what we call death, whether it be our physical body or circumstances, or life as we've become accustomed to, is but a transition, a sacred movement of the soul from one expression to another. So the work of this divine science is to teach this truth, that this infinite source, this divine wisdom, this eternal love is here and now and can never end. So let's take a few moments and enter into the silence for a moment of sacred recognition. Take a deep, gentle breath. Visualize the light of life from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, completely expressing itself through what we call our body. It is alive in every cell, any fiber, every tissue, every organ, everything. It is also present in the circumstances in our life. When we feel bereft and feel that we have a difficulty connecting with our source, we can remind ourselves that there is only one presence and one power in our lives, God the good, omnipotent. We are at one with perfect life, perfect substance, forever and ever and ever. And we know this is true for everyone in our human community throughout the globe. Even those that we do not understand, we have a sense of separation from a sense of appreciation and feel that there's upheaval and discord. And those are just opportunities that call us forth. And remember that we are all connected soul to soul. And we declare that this light from each of our souls, the love that we were created in, expresses itself through all of us. As A Course in Miracles suggests, there are only two things: either love or fear. So friends, as divine scientists, what shall you focus on? So as we look within to the spirit in which you live, there you will find contentment, harmony, peace, what we might call heaven, the awareness of our connection to one another and to our source in this omnipresence. So let us seal this moment with gratitude and certainty. Life is God, and God is life. There is no end, only transformation. Healing is the eternal recognition that we are one with each other and God. And may we go forth and see every being, beginning with ourselves, and here and beyond the veil, as radiant expressions of the one infinite life. And in this realization, may peace abide, love heal, and truth of immortality shine through all as peace. And so it is.
Well, thank you, Reverend Joy, and thank you, everyone, for spending those few minutes with us, letting go and going within and reconnecting with our source. I want to share with us now just a couple of people, a couple of new thought luminaries. One, I don't know that he was tied exactly to a particular tradition, maybe the mental science movement, which was more of philosophy than any sort of organization. But anyway, the first person I want to tell you about is Brown Landon. And he made his transition in 1945 at the age of 98. Now, that is sort of amazing because he was a very sick kid. In fact, they used to, when you just couldn't do much and you were just always sick all the time and weak and frail and allergic to everything and couldn't eat lots of foods and you were tired easily and you were always pale and you couldn't play outside, they just called that invalidism. And so, I mean, it might be arthritis, it might be chronic fatigue. Nobody knew. We didn't have names for things back then. They just, you can't do anything. None of our medicines are making you better. You're an invalid. And Brown Landon, his friends called him BL, was a childhood invalid. That's the same diagnosis Melinda Kramer had, of course, in the 1800s also. But one day, he was so sick all the time, his family had some means, and so they hired a nurse to be with him all the time. But he ran out of medicine, and it was just the nurse and BL. So she had to run to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription. And during that brief time that she was away from his sickbed, BL smelled smoke. Well, you know, where there's smoke, there's probably fire. And he just remembered his parents saying, he just had overheard at some point, one saying to the other, if anything ever happens, make sure you go to the attic and get this chest, this trunk. Well, there was no one there to do it. And somehow that thought was just in his mind, oh my gosh, trouble, I've got to get the trunk. And he went to the attic and he got this heavy trunk and he dragged it down the stairs. Eventually he blacked out, but came to on the lawn next to this trunk. Somehow this person who lived most of every day in bed had to have a around-the-clock nurse just to keep him fed and bathed and okay, had somehow summoned the miraculous fortitude to go get this trunk and carry it out of the house. It overwhelmed him. He passed out, but he made it out. Now there was a fire and it had done minimal damage. But what he learned from that experience is that it changed his life forever. He learned, or he decided anyway, that if he could unconsciously, in a moment of crisis, summon strength to do what seemed incredible, maybe even impossible, then maybe he could summon that sort of power consciously at will. And so he determined right then that he would not be bedridden anymore. And in fact, he did live in good health for the rest of his days, which, as I said to you, amounted to almost 100 years. Now, London, because of both the spirituality or the study of mind and the experience of healing, he studied both theology and medicine, became a doctor and a self-help writer. And he wrote and talked about how in his medical practice, he discovered that positive suggestions often were as effective as medical prescriptions. And so from his own experience, he learned that making a decision, having a clear intention, can release mental powers you didn't even know you had. And he included that then as part of his medical practice as a physician. So that's Brown Landone, B.L. Landone, born in 1847, made his transition in 1945 at the age of 98, a lifelong healer. Well, the next person I want you to know about is F. Bernadette Turner. And she was a divine scientist. We always end with divine science. And she's the only other one I'm telling you about today. But F. Bernadette Turner, she was born in 1903, lived until 1995, lived 92 years, and was still active and even making life choices and changes up until almost the very end. She wanted, way back, in the early 20th century, she wanted to be an Episcopal priest. She was Episcopalian. She loved the ministry. She loved the liturgy. She loved the Bible. And so it just never occurred to her that all priests at that time were men. And so when she decided, that she would try to become a priest, it became very clear to her very soon that that wasn't going to happen. But she still wanted to serve people. She still wanted to do ministry. She still wanted to help people. And so she went to school and she earned multiple degrees. She got a degree in education. She got a degree in sociology. She got a degree in social work. And finally, she got a doctorate degree in psychology. Well, then this clinician, this social worker, psychologist, teacher, sociologist, she discovered divine science. And that sort of mixing spirituality with mental, mind power and trying to heal mind and body and finances and relationships, which is what she'd been doing with all of these other sciences anyway, super appealed to her. And then she trained to become a divine science minister. She couldn't be a priest. She could be a New Thought minister. And divine science, founded by women, have always ordained women, have always had women in leadership. So she just got right in. And she pastored divine science churches in Chicago and in Roanoke, Virginia. And we may hear something about that part of Virginia very soon, in a week or two to come. But anyway, in retirement, she eventually retired, moved into an assisted living sort of retirement home where she continued to minister as a volunteer chaplain right there where she lived. She taught yoga. She encouraged people to exercise. She exercised almost till the day she died on an exercise bike. She taught meditation. And while she was living in a retirement home, continuing to practice divine science and New Thought spirituality and teach it and minister to people in her community, At the age of 86, because now we're way, almost towards the end of the 20th century and the world has changed. At the age of 86, she was ordained a deacon in the Episcopal Church. The following year, in 1990, at the age of 87, she was ordained an Episcopal priest. Her lifelong dream finally fulfilled. There are canons in the Episcopal Church where you can read for orders and, whatever. So there's sort of an alternative path to the priesthood. And at 86, she took that and became first a deacon and then a priest and remained a priest for the next 4 or 5 years until she died. And she continued as a divine science chaplain, minister, and Episcopal priest, serving her community. And she encouraged her fellow seniors to increase their energy by taking rest, exercise, good nutrition, and meditation. And so that is, I just think, an ideal divine science story. Open at the top and loose around the edges and and deep at the bottom. And she just did. When there was an obstacle, she just did something else, and then that led to something else, and then that led back to her original dream. And she just did it all. And she experienced and taught and demonstrated one of the biggest miracles in life. She lived her life as long as she was alive. Not everyone does that. Whether you live to be 40 or 140, if you're not really living, who cares? But she showed the value and the power and the possibility of being alive every day that you're alive. It's not about, as Mae West used to say, it's not the men in my life, it's the life in my men. Well, it's not the years in your life, it's the life in your years. And she showed that and she taught that. So B.L. Brown Landon and F. Bernadette Turner, Dr. F. Bernadette Turner, divine scientist, psychologist, and Episcopal priest. Those are our New Thought luminaries for today. Now we're going to have we're going to talk about some topics that we started last week. We're going to continue this week, but first, let's have a quick break. We are Divine Science Everywhere, and this is the New Thought Media Network.
We're back. So today I'm focusing on the chapter Immortality in the book Divine Science and Healing by Melinda E. Kramer. Now, Melinda Kramer teaches that immortality isn't a distant promise, but rather a present reality. And she affirmed over and over and over that God is eternal spirit and everything is inseparable from God because it is created from God. And we too are immortal beings. However, she wasn't saying that it didn't apply necessarily to the body, which is subject to change and decay and change. Instead, true immortality is about our spiritual nature, our divine identity that cannot perish. She emphasized that the only salvation there is oneness with God. And some people are very concerned about this notion of salvation. And she said, oneness with God, which is the all good, if oneness is not accepted, then salvation is not apparent. And eternal life is realized when we awaken to our unity with the divine here and now. The work of divine science is to teach and demonstrate the truth of atonement, or as we in metaphysics describe, at one ment. And that God is expressed through the flesh and through everything in all visibility as well as in invisibility, and to demonstrate immortality and eternal life. Our faith in this and our connection with this omnipresent, good, has the ability, in fact, it shall calm every storm and restore harmony, wholeness, and peace. For that is our natural state, divine life expressing through all as harmony, wholeness, and peace, and perfect life. And another thing to consider is that energy, life, and spirit do not die. They simply change form. I remember that my grandmother would describe when my grandfather died that he slipped into the invisible. And I love that. I love that. He just slipped into the invisible. And Melinda taught that what we call death is a transition into the ongoing eternal expression of life. And fear, which is an illusion of death, dissolves when we understand. So that fear of death dissolves when we understand that spirit is unbroken and continuous, and we can never be separated from it. Recently, I talked to a bereaved client at hospice, and she was talking about her loved one that expressed a great deal of fear and anxiety about dying. But then, all of a sudden, she had this sense of peace. It was the Sunday before she died. And she just was alert. And she even asked to have a priest come and to give her communion. She participated. She was fully alert, and she asked to see certain people. And within a few days, she transitioned from that form we call a body into spirit. So that's a lesson for us, and to remember that not only about what we call transition or leaving this form, but also in circumstances. When we reach that place of peace and trust, and just know, even if we have to say a mantra to ourselves and pray and remind ourselves, like stop if we're dwelling on something that's disturbing our peace. When we know that this is available to us as our peace of mind, we have such power, such power. And we realize this. We're living in the sense of immortality when we awaken our consciousness, when we deepen our consciousness to that omnipresence of God. And healing and wholeness arise when we practice this truth in mind and daily life. And as we've talked before, healing can occur in many ways. Melinda stressed over and over to embody this teaching through our spiritual practice. And isn't just meditating and praying, it's practicing the truth we know. One of my mentors, Reverend Alola James, used to say, pray, meditate, and practice all the truth that you know. And that's the secret. And those are ways to demonstrate immortality. And remembering that when we dwell on fear or appearances or what seem to be limitations, only seems to multiply it. So instead, affirm the truth that you are always, always connected. You live and move and have your being in this source. And this truth brings health, harmony, and freedom.
That's lovely. Reverend Joy, it occurs to me that, if you were Catholic, you'd have the Catholic answer to what it's all about. And if you were Muslim, you'd have the Muslim answer to what it's all about. And if you were, an atheist, you'd maybe not believe there was any answer to what anything was about. And we have, of course, in New Thought, we have our ideas in Buddhism and whatnot. And but some people are just naturally, I don't know if it's fear, but it's skepticism. They're afraid to put all their eggs in a basket, in any basket. There's even now near-death experience research, and still we can't, we just can't know what we can't know. Ernest Holmes believed that basically death is us taking this suit of clothes off and there's another one underneath, and then you go forward like that. It's like one of those Russian cup dolls, and there's always just one more underneath, and it comes out, and then so it's just an evolution always. But what can you say to people who they just can't commit to answers? They're like, wait, I'm not afraid of what's next, but I also can't be sure of what's next. I trust that it's good. It's got to be good. And if it's nothing, I won't know. So that's still fine. But if it's something, it's got to be good. Like, I have that much faith, I have that much trust. But all of this, heaven or reincarnation or all these symbols that we lean on, for comfort or whatever, those symbols aren't very helpful to maybe, me or somebody else. You have to have seen every iteration of this in what you do. How can you help someone on that journey that they're fine knowing that this experience of life is finite? There's probably something else, but that's just as broad as they can make their mind go with it right now. How can you, what do you have for them?
Well, I ask questions and ask them to discuss with me, what do you think happens? And some people say, I don't know. And some are very definite. They fall back on scripture or their beliefs. And then some people say, well, you just don't exist anymore. Matter of fact, I've had people tell me that. And some people say they're looking forward to being with their loved ones again. And yet it perplexes me, because this isn't my way of thinking. They'll say, if I go to heaven, even though they believe in heaven and they've been taught about heaven, there's just something there that, as you said, it challenges them to fully embrace that. So there's that, that anxiety about maybe they're not going there and they'll be separated. They won't be reunited with their loved ones. And in a sense, we're united with our loved ones now,
right
here. Although I don't offer that to some people, that's my belief.
Yeah.
So we often, if they're comfortable, maybe some inspirational reading material, I'll read maybe some scripture, maybe some music, and pray. And I ask them, what would you like to pray for? It's not my decision. And I find that that's very inspirational to me. And I feel that it's empowering to that person, that they get to pray. And it's interesting to hear what they would like to pray for. And sometimes it's, the certainty of where they're going.
Sure.
Just that affirmation to be at peace with their life, forgiveness, because sometimes that's what the sticking point is.
I see. Well, and for the new Divine Science Minister, because you've been in it for a long time, but are you ever to pray for something that just seems so out of your realm of the way you think or whatever, but still you want to offer them what they need? For instance, right. if they want to be forgiven, and of course you don't think God's holding anything against them, or if they want to be sure there's, they're going to heaven, and you don't think they're in any risk of, not having something good, whatever's next. Or maybe they want to pray for one last miracle, like I want to be completely fixed and not die, or I want to make sure my kids are going to be okay, or. Right. How do you pray for people, giving them what they need without going places that aren't real for you?
Well, I trust Spirit to move through me and to choose those words. I've never had anyone complain about a prayer that I've right. officiated. So when they have those those requests for a prayer that seems so different than my philosophy, sometimes that opens the door for more conversation. And I think that that is a very common concern for some people, to feel as if they've been forgiving themselves, others forgive them, and feel that there is completion. And also, as you said, sometimes they're concerned about their family, their loved ones, that they'll be okay. So we just pray about that. I was in a sticky situation more than once. I remember one specifically, though. The family wanted me to make sure that their loved one was converted to believe what they believed.
What they believe.
So that was challenging.
Yeah.
And yet I did my best to advocate for all of them, and said a prayer that said that without saying that.
Yeah.
And I do remember having a conversation about how they thought of this person, and why they have this concern, and different things. And so that seemed to work out okay.
I get prayer requests from all over the world, and sometimes it's pray that a demon is cast out of my daughter-in-law, or or pray that my grandchildren are saved, or whatever. And so this isn't necessarily end of life issues, but it's similar, like people asking me to pray prayers that I on my own would never pray. And so it's usually something like God grant them the blessings they need most, or let us experience the truth, or or whatever, or let us know that we're always held in God's love. I mean, I have to try to communicate what I think they want in words that are true for me, but also trying to give them what they're asking for. It's a balancing act.
Yes, being alert and yet empowering them, because they had a request.
Absolutely. It's almost time, or it is time actually, for a little break. Jeff, do you have a question for Reverend Joy before we go into new topics?
Nope, I'm good. Yeah.
He's ready. Whatever's next after this life, he's ready for it. I think we all are. Well, fine. This is the next two topics will be back to back, but this was such a heavy one. I thought, okay, let's talk about that one and then take a little break. But we have two more topics, and we're going to talk about them after this break. We are Divine Science Everywhere on New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
We're back. We're talking about the three biggies, aren't we, in New Thought? We're talking about immortality, prosperity, and health, healing. Sometimes people also will throw in relationships with that, harmony. So we're doing at least three of the big four, and have been for the last 2 weeks. In fact, we could probably devote a season to this. These are the biggies. And so I'm talking about prosperity, and I'm not going to take too long with this, because prosperity is so much everything else. If you're talking about healing, you can heal your finances. if you're talking about immortality, you can be forever blessed. I mean, so prosperity is just part of whatever else we're talking about, really. So I don't think I need as much time as the other two subjects. I do want to tell the story about Melinda Kramer. She was, I forget why, she was like needing a train. She was trying to get on a train to go somewhere, and realized when she got up there to buy her ticket that she'd left her pocketbook somewhere. She didn't have a checkbook, she didn't have a credit card, she didn't have cash, she didn't have anything. But she had to get on this train. And I guess if she went all the way home to get her pocketbook or whatever, the hotel, wherever it was, she would have missed the train. And so what? And she reached into her coat pocket, and there just happened to be the exact amount of what the train cost one way to where it was, $2 or whatever. And she just happened to have like 8 quarters in her coat pocket. This coat that she doesn't wear all the time, whatever. She just happened to be wearing it that day, and that pocket on that coat on that day just happened to have the exact amount she needed, blah, blah, blah. And her response was immediately, "The angel of supply is ever at hand." And that is one of my favorite affirmations. I don't wait till it's happened. Sometimes I say it before it's happened. The angel of supply is ever at hand. Now, New Thought angels are symbolic or whatever, not necessarily beings of themselves, but what she was saying is, we live in an abundant universe. God is everywhere, and God is everything. So God manifesting as money may as well show up here where I need it, when I need it, and the amount that I need. Now, we don't want to be too flip about that, and we don't want to be insensitive to people who are struggling, and we've all struggled. Even Louise Hay, master teacher that she was, there was one time that her publishing company was going through a rough time. They had to do layoffs. She was very sad about it. They prayed, for all the people that were being let go or whatever. And she has even said, it is natural to have more money at some times than others. And of course, Mary Baker Eddy, who's known, of course, as a healer, started an entire movement based on healing. She said, we all have had the experience of unanswered prayer. So we don't want to be arrogant. We don't want to be flip. We don't want to be cruel. We don't want to be arrogant. We've all had tough times. And sometimes we can turn it around like that. And sometimes we turn it around like a big, big tanker. It takes a minute. Sometimes it moves like a glacier, but there's movement. So we're not saying if you just do it my way, everything's going to be perfect, because that is not the experience of anyone I've ever known. But all of us who are on a spiritual path have discovered that when we work our principles, we can get through the difficulty, and the difficulty can get better. That's for sure. So there's this one story of Melinda. She finds it's almost magic, almost a miracle. The money she needed. Now, the money was already there. It didn't like pop, nobody like snuck money into her pocket. It just, everything worked together for the good she needed in that moment. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is when Hagar, Abraham and Sarah kick out Hagar, and Hagar and Abraham's child, and they kick her out. It is not Abraham's finest moment. It's a little better than the moment when he tried to kill his own son. He thought God wanted him to kill his other son, but whatever. Abraham's not my favorite character, but nevertheless, Hagar is tossed out. She's used as a surrogate, and then when not needed as a surrogate anymore, she and her child tossed out. She thinks she's going to starve in the desert, and she's crying. She put her kid under a shade tree. She cries, and this angel, this idea, gets her attention and says, "Why are you crying?" And she says, "Because we're going to die out here. Hello." "I'm crying because I'm sad, and I'm sad because we're going to die of hunger and thirst and heat stroke." And when she looked up, though, to confront this voice that's asking her a silly question, she sees a well in the wilderness. That well had always been there, but she didn't see it until she broadened her perspective. She didn't see it until she looked up and looked out and saw more, which was narrowly focused on the problem. She didn't see anything. But when she broadened her perspective, she saw other possibilities and other options and other blessings. Of course, miracle says that's what a miracle is when you change your perspective, when you change your perception. She changed her perception, and right there is what she needed all the time. Well, that was, I think, was Melinda's experience. The coins were already in pocket. But when she opened up the possibilities and looked and accepted, then the miracle was there. The miracle was already there. She could have ignored it, but she was open to it and experienced what she needed. And so that, I think, is what she taught and meant by prosperity is that we live in an abundant universe. Whatever we need already exists for us. What we want wants us. What we need is available to us. We may have to change our perspective before we can see and seize the possibility, but it's already there. Kramer taught that in her writings, including Divine Science and Health, that prosperity is a natural result of aligning with the omnipresence and creative power of spirit. Her teachings, rooted in these New Thought principles, emphasize that the universe is abundant and that the individual mind, which is one with divine mind, has the power to manifest its needs. We don't judge. We don't get to judge how it happens for other people,
Right.
quickly or slowly, instantly, or through a 10-step process, or by themselves or with the help of someone else. Whatever. Blessing is blessing. I have that same opinion about healing. My healing affirmation is say a prayer and take a pill. If one doesn't work, the other will. It's all God. So I'm not averse to. And the same thing with money. Whether you're working at 3 jobs, or win a scratch-off ticket, or inherit something, or get a raise, or find natural gas in your backyard, whatever. However it came to you, prosperity is prosperity. And so she said that the individual mind, being one with the divine mind, has the power to manifest its needs. And she made clear, true prosperity is not just money, but it includes health, harmony, and wholeness, a complete manifestation of good in one's life. And achieving this, she thought, or believed and taught, requires affirmative prayer, disciplined constructive thinking, and absolute faith in the omnipresent supply of God's good. By correcting false beliefs of lack and knowing that the demand for the work includes everything needful for its completion, one ensures their supply. And that is a direct quote from her, knowing that the demand for the work includes everything needful for its completion. I'm going to turn this over to Jeff in just like 10 seconds, but I want to tell this one story because it's a very personal story and it's a very current story. Regardless of your politics, regardless of your understanding of economics, regardless if you have an MBA or whatever, it's not too difficult to realize there's a lot of insecurity in the world right now. People wondering about their Medicare, about their Medicaid, about their Social Security, about their job security, about their grant funding, and so on. There have been cuts, there have been layoffs, there have been reductions in force, and worries and concerns and threats of more to come. That's the world. And there are spiritual ways to deal with that, and we're doing our best, right? We went through this with the Great Depression. It comes up every once in a while, and we tackle it spiritually, and we get through. Well, but in the meantime, things come up and down, and that affects churches and nonprofits and anything that results that depends on voluntary generosity. Because when people are scared, they give less. And when people are anxious, they give less. And so we've had the Sunshine Cathedral has had a rough several months. And here's the thing. It always comes, but it's the flow. You know what I mean? Like you'll be behind 6-8 weeks, and then here comes an avalanche. Whew, and you catch up. But then you get behind for 6-8 weeks, and then here comes an avalanche, and you catch up. And so we don't complain because we catch up. Some places aren't catching up. But this is one of those catch-up weeks where we were, 5, 6, 7 weeks behind on things. Just the flow was crunchy. And all at once, a local benevolence, a local benefactor, what I'm trying to say, philanthropy, a local philanthropy organization gave us a $10,000 grant out of the blue. A local parishioner, I don't know what made her to do this, took $10,000 out of her retirement and gave it to the church. Someone else had passed away, had left a legacy gift of $10,000. We got 3 $10,000 gifts within 5 or 6 days. We had a $30,000 week on top of regular credit card donations and plate offerings and mail-ins and that sort of thing. A $30,000 bump. Another catch-up time. But during the slow times, that's when you've got to remind yourself the angel of supply is ever at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we want this week's windfall every week, but you get it when you get it. You have to know prosperity even when it doesn't seem to be showing up, because that's how it is going to show up. And so just a personal experience of Melinda's teaching of the angel of supply is ever at hand. Sometimes it looks like you're going to get stuck at the train station, and then another thing happens and it's all good again. So we believe in omnipresence. That means God, the good, everywhere, fully present. And that means whatever we need is possible.
Yeah.
It's Jeff's turn.
And everything that I've got to say about healing can be applied to what you just said about prosperity. Melinda said that the natural unfoldment of pure being or spirit is the only true healing. Now, whether that's healing of your body, healing of your finances, healing of your relationships, healing of whatever circumstance you've got, it's the natural unfoldment of being. That's what we are. It's God expressing or being expressed as us. So we're not trying to make something happen. In this case, with me talking about healing, we're not trying to make a sick body well again. What we're doing is uncovering the truth of what's already there.
I like
Health
that.
and well-being is our natural state, and we're just allowing that natural state to unfold and present itself. Melinda also said something really interesting. She said, when I speak the word that is true of omnipresent spirit and declare the word that is the truth of God for a patient or a student, the speaker of the words, that would be the one giving the treatment or the lesson, it shows that they are there in the patient or the student. It shows that treatment is just as efficient as being present with them. So when it comes right down to it, this is the way, as she said, this is the way that divine science healing is accomplished. We are aligning ourselves with the truth of what already is. In this case, aligning with spirit, knowing that we are all one. And so what I'm speaking for you is true for me. It's true for everybody else out there. And if you're on the same wavelength, you're going to pick up on that and you're going to receive. It's just fascinating the way that works. Here's something that you said, Durrell, that really caught me when you were talking about the say the prayer or take a pill. She said every particle of all remedies have their origin in the same substance in which we exist and of which we are composed. So when we remove from belief the name and the claim that we need a remedy, then we blend as perfectly in consciousness with the substance contained in the remedy. In other words, it's all God, whether it's in the pill or it's in the exercise or it's in the diet or whatever it is. We're aligning with that, and it comes into being. It's simple.
Yeah.
Not always the easiest thing in the world to practice, but it's simple.
Right.
And she did say one other thing that she caught my eye when I was reading through Divine Science and Healing. She said, we only need to know the truth of absolute unity to do away with the fallacy that we need remedies and to put away the race supposition of duality. True spiritual education will do the work. It's like Paul said in the book of Romans. He said, nothing can separate us from the love of God. And what is the love of God but all good things? That's love, it's joy, it's peace, it's prosperity, and it's health. And whenever we say, oh, I'm feeling sick, or I'm poor, I don't have enough money to do this, you're separating yourself from God. That separation doesn't exist in reality. It exists up here in your mind, in consciousness. So when we take away the idea that we have to name it, poverty or sickness or discord, whatever, we take away the names for those things, we realign again with the unity that is already there, because in truth, that's all it is unity. It's all God, it's all us, and we are one with it. And so I think that's probably the hardest part of our teachings for people to grasp if they haven't studied this for a while. It sounds so woo-woo, but it's really not when you really stop to consider. And when you consider that there are a lot of people, millions and millions and millions of people out there who have been taught that God is separate from us, that there's no unity there, that yeah, we're children of God, but we are not God in expression. It's kind of hard for them to wrap their mind around the idea that we are one.
Mm-hmm.
So when you truly, really, truly get that there is no such thing as separation, there's no duality, there's no God and healing, God and prosperity. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's God is healing, God is prosperity, God is whatever. Then you get it. You get your healing, you get your prosperity, you get your healed relationships, you get whatever it is that you need, because it's all part and parcel of what you already are.
Yeah. I think I mentioned last week something about my cat allergy being just instantly cured.
Yeah.
Because I thought an air filter was working and it wasn't, and then I just never had it again. I've also brought, whether like antihistamines or pain or whatever, I put them in my pocket to take later, forgot to take them, but it's as if I had taken them. Like I've taken, because I just thought I'd taken them or whatever. And the power of belief is super, or intention, is really more than we give it credit for.
It's almost that placebo effect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, we have once again covered a lot in an hour. Let's have one more quick break, and then Reverend Joy will have more stuff to tell us. But quickly, first, let's have this little break. We are Divine Science Everywhere, and this is New Thought Media Network.
Welcome back. We're so glad that you join us, and we would really appreciate if you would like and share this broadcast and also previous broadcasts. Next week, do join us. Reverend Dr. Morita Watkins will be with us, a divine science minister at Roanoke Church in Virginia. And yes, Virginia. And I'm sure you'll enjoy her story of her many years and experience with divine science and the path to ministry. The following week will be, our guest will be Reverend Dr. Allie Benjamin, who also has a show on New Thought Media Network called The Living Edge. And she will be our guest, and we're looking forward to that. And we're looking forward to you joining us again. So until next time, next week, remember that this is Divine Science Everywhere on New Thought Media Network. Bye-bye. Till next time.